I am Margaret, a 55-year-old internist at a major hospital in Chicago. For the past 30 years, my husband David and I have built a stable and fulfilling life together. Both of us worked in the medical field, enduring long shifts that often stretched late into the night, with exhausting overnight calls that left us with nothing more than a quick kiss in passing. But we never complained. The work was demanding, but in return, we had a warm home, financial security, and 2 sons, Ethan and Lucas, whom I have always been proud of. Ethan, my eldest, is now 30 years old, intelligent, determined, and always aiming for something greater. Even as a child, his ambition was evident, and I once believed it was a good thing. What parent wouldn't want their child to be successful? But over time, I saw that ambition morph into something else. Ethan was no longer the boy who found joy in sharing his victories with his younger brother. Instead, he became someone who constantly calculated what he could gain. Lucas, my younger son, 27, is the complete opposite of his brother. While Ethan was always busy strategizing his next career move, Lucas embraced a slower, more artistic life. He loved art, had a passion for painting and tattoo design. I knew David had been disappointed when Lucas chose not to follow the family's medical path like his parents and older brother, but I wasn't. My son had talent, and I believed that everyone has the right to pursue their passion. Our life seemed to be following a peaceful and predictable path. A spacious suburban home, 2 rental properties that David and I had invested in over the years, and cozy family dinners at the end of long days. It painted the picture of a perfect happy family. But then Amanda appeared. Amanda was Ethan's fiancée. From the first moment I met her, I felt something was off. She was young, beautiful, stylish, and carried an air of confidence that felt more like entitlement. She walked into my home as if it already belonged to her, scanning every detail with sharp, calculating eyes, unable to hide her fascination with our lifestyle. "You have a lovely home," she said, her voice sweet but laced with something else. Something I couldn't quite place. "Ethan has told me so much about your family, and I have to say, I'm very impressed." I smiled politely, but inside, a quiet alarm had started ringing. I was not someone easily swayed by flattery. I had met many people in my lifetime, and I could tell the difference between genuine warmth and someone who was simply playing a game to get ahead. I should have trusted my instincts that day. But I didn't. And that was my biggest mistake. David passed away on a gloomy autumn morning. Even though I had prepared myself for it, I still couldn't accept the reality. A year of battling pancreatic cancer, enduring painful rounds of chemotherapy. Yet in the end, David couldn't win. The man with whom I had built this life, my companion for over 30 years, was now just an irreplaceable void. The days that followed were a blur, a mix of grief and responsibility. I didn't have time to fall apart. The funeral had to be arranged, legal paperwork needed to be completed, and above all, I had to stay strong for my children. Ethan and Lucas reacted to the loss in their own ways. Lucas withdrew into himself, spending hours in his room sketching vague, abstract drawings. His pain was quiet, unspoken, unassuming. Ethan, however, was different. Right after the funeral, he came to me with a stern expression. "We need to talk," he said, his voice dry. I knew this conversation was coming. I just didn't expect it to happen so soon. We sat at the dining table, a place that, just a week ago, had been the center of our family gatherings. Ethan didn't waste time, he got straight to the point. "Mom, Dad left a will, didn't he?" I set my teacup down, feeling a weight in my chest. "Yes," I answered slowly. "Your father made all the arrangements before he passed." Ethan nodded, his sharp gaze calculating. "So, how is the estate being divided?" I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. "All assets are in my name, as your father arranged. That includes this house, the 2 rental apartments, and all our savings." Ethan blinked, his expression shifting for a brief moment before he masked it. "Are you planning to redistribute the assets?" I had anticipated this question. Yes, I said. I want both of you to have a strong start. But this estate is the result of both your father's and my hard work. I will retain control, but I have decided that each of you will receive one of the rental apartments. Additionally, I will set aside $200,000 for each of you as a financial foundation. Ethan raised an eyebrow, his lips pressing into a thin line. So, you're keeping most of the assets? I nodded. This was your father's decision. He wanted to ensure that I wouldn't face financial hardship in the future. Lucas, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. Mom is doing the right thing, Ethan. It's not like we're struggling. Ethan turned to Lucas, his frustration evident. Do you even know what the real estate market is like right now? Those apartments are worth at least $500,000 each, and she's only giving us $200,000 in cash? What about the rest of the money? A sharp pang hit my chest at my son's words. Then, I said, my voice firm. I am not only giving you anything. Your father and I worked hard for these assets, and I've thought carefully about this decision. I am not obligated to split everything immediately. His hands clenched, his face tight with disappointment. I see, he said slowly, enunciating each word. So, you want to keep control of everything. Lucas sighed. Ethan, this isn't about control, this is Dad's final wish, we should respect it. Ethan glanced at his brother before turning back to me. Fine, but I want this in writing, no one changes their mind later. I nodded. Of course. As Ethan walked away, I knew he was far from satisfied with this arrangement. And I knew this wouldn't be the end of the conflict. In fact, it was only the beginning. About 6 months after David passed away, Ethan came to visit me with Amanda. I knew this was bound to happen sooner or later. Although I had met Amanda a few times before, this was the first time she officially visited my home as Ethan's fiancée. That afternoon, I prepared tea and tidied up the living room to welcome them. Lucas was there too, but he sat quietly on the couch, occasionally glancing at his brother with a wary expression. He had never really liked Amanda, and I couldn't blame him for that. As soon as the door opened, Amanda walked in as if she owned the place. Dressed in a form-fitting designer dress, her handbag sparkling under the light, she scanned the room with a self-satisfied smile. Aunt Margaret, it's been so long, she said. Her voice so sweet, it felt insincere. I gave a polite smile. Hello, Amanda. Hello, Ethan. Have a seat. Ethan looked excited, but there was something in his eyes that made me uneasy. He wasn't just here for a visit. After some small talk, Amanda placed her teacup on the table and leaned back into the chair, as if she were completely at home. Mrs. Margaret, Ethan and I have been planning our wedding. I want it to be perfect, a truly memorable event. I nodded. A wedding is a big occasion, I understand. She flashed a bright smile before shifting her gaze to Ethan, as if prompting him to continue. We've found a really special venue for the rehearsal dinner, Ethan said carefully. It's a luxury hotel downtown. Top-tier service, beautiful ambiance. The only issue is... He hesitated, then rushed through the next part as if hoping I wouldn't dwell on it. The cost is around $35,000. I set my teacup down and stared at my son. How much? I asked, my voice calm but firm with disbelief. Amanda smiled, her tone light but unwavering. Just $35,000, Mrs. Margaret. Given the scale of our wedding, that's a perfectly reasonable amount. I looked at Ethan, hoping to see some sign that he understood how absurd this request was. But his gaze avoided mine. I took a deep breath. Ethan, I've made it clear from the beginning. I'm willing to support you and Lucas financially, but I am not a bank. $35,000 for a rehearsal dinner? That's an outrageous expense. Amanda's smile faded slightly. But you have the means, she said, her tone carrying a hint of dissatisfaction. Ethan told me you own 2 rental properties, a large home and a substantial savings account. This amount is nothing compared to your wealth. At that moment, Lucas could no longer stay silent. He raised an eyebrow and crossed his arms. Interesting. You're the one marrying my brother, yet you seem quite interested in my mother's finances. Amanda turned to Lucas, irritation flickering in her eyes, but she quickly composed herself. Lucas, you don't understand. A grand wedding isn't just about personal preference, it's about status. About respect. I clenched my hands on my lap. Amanda, Ethan, I said firmly. I have already helped you both by distributing the estate fairly, but this request? Absolutely not. I will not pay $35,000 for a rehearsal dinner. The tension in the room thickened. Ethan's brows furrowed, his lips pressed into a tight line. Amanda raised her eyebrows, her expression defiant. So, you want your son's wedding to be a mediocre event? She asked coldly. I met her gaze without hesitation. This isn't about an extravagant wedding, it's about the real value of a marriage. If a lavish party matters more than family, then perhaps you two should rethink your priorities. Amanda stood up, grabbing her handbag. If you're unwilling to support us, don't blame us for making other decisions. Ethan reached for her hand, trying to calm her down. Amanda, he murmured as if attempting to regain control of the situation. Lucas sighed and shook his head. Mom has made her decision, don't push it. Amanda stared at me for a long moment, then flicked her hair over her shoulder and turned toward the door. Ethan followed, but before leaving he looked back at me, disappointment clear in his eyes. I hope you reconsider, he said. For the sake of family. The doors slammed shut behind them. I sat there, staring at the empty space in front of me. I hadn't expected things to unfold like this. Lucas placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder and gave it a gentle squeeze. Don't worry, Mom, he said. If Ethan lets money take priority over everything else, that's not on you. I nodded, but my heart remained heavy with unease. I knew this wasn't the end of it. In the days following the tense meeting with Ethan and Amanda, I thought things would settle down, but I was wrong. The phone started ringing constantly. At first, Ethan spoke in a soft, persuasive tone, trying to convince me to reconsider the $35,000 for the rehearsal dinner. When I stood firm, his voice changed, becoming more urgent, more frustrated. Mom, do you even understand? This isn't just a dinner. This is about how Amanda's family sees us. If you don't help, I'll look like someone who has nothing. I gripped the phone tightly, forcing myself to stay calm. Ethan, I've already helped you so much. 2 apartments, a substantial amount of cash. That's what your father and I could do for you. But I will not throw tens of thousands of dollars into an extravagant party. Ethan took a deep breath on the other end of the line. Do you even know how wealthy Amanda's family is? They're spending over $500,000 on the wedding. Don't you feel embarrassed that your own son can't contribute even a small portion? I closed my eyes, feeling my heart clench. Ethan, a wedding is not a financial competition. But you have the money, you have over $1 million in savings. Why are you being so selfish? His words hit me like a slap in the face. I never imagined the day would come when my own son would call me selfish just because I refused to throw money away. I tightened my grip on the phone. All right, Ethan, if that's how you see it, then there's nothing more to say. I hung up. After that call, Ethan stopped reaching out. I no longer heard his voice. No texts, no phone calls. And when I tried calling him, he responded with short, cold replies. I knew Amanda was behind this. The only person who remained by my side was Lucas. One evening as we were having dinner, he set his phone down on the table and said, Mom, I think you need to hear this. I looked at him, confused. What is it? Lucas took a deep breath before playing an audio recording on his phone. Amanda's voice came through first. Ethan, your mom is such a stubborn old woman. But don't worry. I know how to handle people like her. A chill ran down my spine. Just keep up the pressure. If necessary, tell her you'll cut her off completely. Trust me, she won't be able to handle losing her son. Then, I heard Ethan's voice. Lower but full of agreement. Yeah, she's weak. If she doesn't give in, we just have to wait until she's old and frail. The money will come to me eventually. Heat rushed to my face. The words echoed in my head, each one like a knife piercing my heart. Lucas stopped the recording and looked at me with concern. "Mom, are you okay?" I stared at the phone screen, my hands trembling. "Why?" I whispered. "Why would Ethan talk about his own mother like that?" Lucas took my hand and squeezed it gently. "Mom, I know this hurts. But you need to do something." I clenched my fingers, feeling the pain in my chest shift into something else. Determination. "No, Lucas," I said, my voice stronger than ever. "I won't sit back and take this anymore." I decided I wouldn't let Ethan and Amanda continue to use me. If they saw me as nothing more than a walking bank, it was time to shatter that illusion. I was going to the wedding. Not to celebrate, but to expose the truth. I thought long and hard before booking my flight to New York. The sight of Ethan and Amanda's lavish wedding. I wasn't going to give them my blessing. I was going to confront them. Lucas came with me as he always did, my steady anchor in the storm. During the flight, my hands trembled as I flipped through the extravagant wedding invitations Ethan had sent. Everything was perfect. At least on the surface. But I knew the truth hidden beneath the polished exterior. We arrived on the afternoon of the wedding. The luxury resort was breathtaking, adorned with crystal chandeliers reflecting off gilded walls. Long banquet tables draped in white silk. Expensive champagne flowing endlessly into delicate crystal glasses. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a display of wealth and status. Amanda appeared in a stunning wedding gown, her eyes lighting up when she saw me. But not with joy, with smugness. "Oh, Mrs. Margaret, I didn't think you'd actually come," she said, her lips curling into a saccharine smile. I remained calm. Why wouldn't I? After all, I'm still the mother of the groom. Ethan stepped forward, his expression colder than I had ever seen. "Mom, why are you here?" I met his gaze directly. "To congratulate you, of course." He said nothing. The reception was grand, filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and endless toasts. I sat quietly in a corner, watching it all. A deep, indescribable sadness settled in my chest. The son I had loved and raised had become a stranger, masked by ambition and greed. Then came the speeches. Amanda's father spoke first, proudly praising his daughter and their prestigious family. Next was Ethan, who thanked everyone and, most of all, Amanda. "The woman who changed my life." Then, the microphone was passed to me. I stood up, feeling every eye in the room shift toward me. "I came here today not just to celebrate my son and his bride," I began, my voice steady. "But to share something important. Something that many of you don't know." The room grew silent. Amanda narrowed her eyes, while Ethan leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. I took out my phone and played the recording Lucas had given me. Amanda's voice filled the grand ballroom. "Ethan, your mom is such a stubborn old woman, but don't worry, I know how to handle people like her." The clinking of glasses stopped. Guests turned to stare, whispers rippling through the crowd. "Just keep up the pressure. If necessary, tell her you'll cut her off completely. Trust me, she won't be able to handle losing her son." The air was thick with tension. I saw Amanda's face drain of color. But the recording wasn't over. Ethan's voice came through next, clear as day. "Yeah, she's weak. If she doesn't give in, we just have to wait until she's old and frail. The money will come to me eventually." A stunned silence fell over the room. Gasps of shock. A few guests covered their mouths. Others glanced at Ethan with disbelief and disgust. I stopped the recording and looked directly at my son. "This is how you see me, Ethan?" I asked, my voice shaking. Not from fear, but from heartbreak. Ethan shot up from his chair. "Mom! You recorded me?" His voice was a mix of shock and rage. Amanda turned to him, desperation flashing in her eyes. "Say something," she hissed. But Ethan had nothing to say. The truth was undeniable. Amanda's parents stepped forward, their faces filled with disappointment. Amanda, her father said sternly, we raised you better than this. Her mother shook her head, grabbing her husband's arm and walking away. One by one, guests began standing up, no longer interested in celebrating a wedding tainted by greed and deceit. Amanda shrieked. You ruined my wedding. I didn't flinch. I turned to Ethan one last time. From this moment on, I am no longer your mother. No one stopped me as I walked away with Lucas. The ballroom doors closed behind me, but I knew this wasn't a tragic ending. This was my freedom. After the turbulent wedding of Ethan and Amanda, I returned to Chicago with a completely different mindset. I quit my job. 30 years as a doctor, 30 years of dedicating myself to the hospital, to my patients, to my work, and in the end I realized I had never truly taken time to live for myself. It wasn't an easy decision. I had spent decades accustomed to long hours in the clinic, midnight emergency calls, and the weight of responsibility on my shoulders. But now? I needed something else. I needed to heal from everything that had happened with Ethan. Lucas was the only one who immediately supported me. You've worked your whole life, Mom, he said as we sat on the balcony, sipping hot tea. It's time you did something for yourself. I smiled. I think so too. I started appreciating the little things I had always overlooked. Reading books, planting flowers, taking evening walks around the neighborhood without the urgency of rushing back to the hospital. But what made me proudest was watching Lucas build his own path. Lucas didn't follow in David's footsteps into medicine, but he found his own way in art. After years of hard work, he opened a tattoo studio in downtown Chicago. But it wasn't just any studio. It was a place where Lucas transformed personal stories into art, etching them onto the skin of his clients. I remember the day of his grand opening. He was nervous, yet his eyes gleamed with passion. What do you think, Mom? Lucas asked as we stepped into the studio for the first time. I looked around at the sketches on the walls, the young clients eagerly waiting for their turn. I think you've done an incredible job. And I truly meant it. Lucas didn't stop at just one shop. He entered art competitions, slowly making a name for himself. Before long, his work was featured in art magazines and local exhibits. As Lucas thrived, I stopped worrying about Ethan. Or at least, I tried to. But then, one day, he came back. That afternoon I was watering my garden when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, but when I opened the door, there he was. Ethan. He looked worse than I had ever seen him. Wrinkled clothes, exhaustion etched into his face. The confidence, the arrogance he once carried, was gone. Can I come in? He asked, his voice hoarse. I crossed my arms, keeping my expression neutral. That's up to you. Ethan stepped inside, settling onto the couch, but he didn't speak right away. I could see the internal battle, the hesitation in his eyes. Finally, he exhaled deeply. Mom, I need help. I sat across from him, staying silent, waiting for him to continue. Amanda? His voice trembled. She always wanted more than I could give. Nothing I did was ever enough. The money I made was never enough. She wanted a bigger house, fancier cars, more vacations. I remained quiet. Ethan took a shaky breath. I did everything I could. I sold the apartment you gave me, took out loans, even maxed out my credit cards. Now I'm drowning in debt. A sharp pain stabbed my chest. So what do you want from me? I asked, my voice calm but firm. Ethan bit his lip. Can you help me? I need some money to pay off my debts, to start over. I looked directly at him. Ethan, I have helped you many times. But you chose this path. And you have to take responsibility for it. His face paled. You can't do this to me, I'm your son. I nodded. And because you are my son, I want you to learn the most important lesson in life. Every choice comes with a price. Ethan shot up from his seat, his eyes red with frustration. You're really going to turn me away? I held my ground. Yes.
His fists clenched, and without another word, he turned and stormed out the door. I watched him leave, my heart heavy. It hurt, but I knew I had done the right thing. Lucas stepped out from the living room, arms crossed as he watched Ethan disappear down the street. "You okay, Mom?" I nodded. "I'm okay," I said, and for the first time in years, I truly meant it. I really am. As time passed, I slowly found peace in my life again. Lucas continued growing his tattoo studio, expanding his business, and becoming one of the most well-known tattoo artists in Chicago's art scene. But what made me happiest wasn't his professional success. It was Sarah, the woman he brought home to introduce to me on a warm Sunday afternoon. Sarah was nothing like Amanda. She didn't flaunt wealth, didn't judge people by their status. From the very first moment I met her, I knew my son had found a kind and genuine woman. She was an elementary school teacher with a gentle smile and a warmth in her eyes whenever she looked at Lucas. During our first dinner together, she helped set the table without being asked, laughed wholeheartedly as Lucas reminisced about his early struggles in the industry, and most importantly, she loved my son in a way every mother hopes their child will be loved. One day, Lucas came over with a mysterious grin on his face. "Mom, I have something to tell you." I raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" He smiled and pulled Sarah closer. She held up her hand, and I saw a sparkling ring on her finger. "We're engaged," Lucas announced, his eyes shining with joy. I froze for a second, then burst into laughter, wrapping them both in a tight hug. Unlike Ethan's extravagant, calculated wedding, Lucas and Sarah's wedding was simple, but filled with love. They held the ceremony in my backyard garden, the one I had tended to for years. Lanterns twinkled from the tree branches, wildflowers lined the aisle. No lavish banquet tables, no hundreds of distant guests, just those who truly loved them, family, close friends, and dear colleagues. I stood there watching Lucas hold Sarah's hand as they exchanged vows. In that moment, I realized that this was what real love looked like. Not something measured by wealth or status, but by sincerity, by two people choosing to build a future together, not using each other for personal gain. As Lucas kissed Sarah under the setting sun, I knew I needed nothing more. After the wedding, Lucas and Sarah bought a cozy little house in the suburbs, just 15 minutes from me. One evening, they invited me over for dinner. I sat in a familiar armchair, enjoying the warmth of their new home. "Why do you two look so nervous?" I asked, noticing how they kept glancing at each other with excitement. Sarah took a deep breath and held Lucas's hand. "Oh, Margaret," she said, her voice brimming with happiness. "We have some news." I paused, my eyes searching hers. Sarah beamed. "I'm pregnant." And not just with one baby. My eyes widened. "It's twins, Mom," Lucas said, his voice full of pride. I felt my heart leap out of my chest. I covered my mouth, tears welling in my eyes. "Oh my goodness, twins?" Sarah nodded, and Lucas laughed. "Looks like you're about to become the busiest grandma in Chicago." I laughed through my tears. I had never expected to feel this kind of joy again. A new beginning, a new happiness. I hadn't heard from Ethan since the day he came asking for money. But one day, I received an unexpected call from a distant relative. "Margaret, have you heard about Ethan?" I froze, my heart sinking slightly. "No." "What happened?" Ina and Amanda got divorced. She took everything, including the last apartment he had left. He's living in a small rental in New Jersey now. I said nothing. I had always known this day would come. A marriage built on greed and manipulation could never last. I didn't feel joy at Ethan's downfall, but I didn't feel pity either. He had made his choices, and now he had to live with the consequences. One late afternoon, I sat on my balcony, watching the golden sunset bathe my garden in warm light. Lucas stepped outside, carrying 2 cups of tea. He handed one to me before sitting beside me. "Do you think Ethan will ever come back?" he asked softly. I sighed. "Maybe, but I don't expect him to." Lucas nodded, then smiled. "Either way, you have so much to look forward to, don't you?" I smiled, thinking about my soon-to-be grandchildren, about the family that Lucas and Sarah were building. "I do," I said, giving his hand a gentle squeeze. "I truly do." Despite the losses, despite the heartbreak, I had found what truly mattered. A real family, where love wasn't measured in money but in sincerity. Margaret's story is more than just a family drama. It's a powerful lesson on love, greed, and the true meaning of happiness. Money can buy luxury, but it can never buy genuine love or family bonds. Ethan chose the path of selfishness, chasing material wealth at the cost of everything else, while Lucas chose honesty, hard work, and found true happiness. Life gives us choices, but we alone are responsible for the consequences. What do you think of Margaret's story? Do you agree with her decisions? Or do you think Ethan deserves a second chance? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more meaningful family stories.